My name is Jacob Stoops.
And I'm Jeff Luella.
And you're listening to the Page 2 podcast.
This is our podcast about the people of the SEO industry.
We chronicle the real-life stories, experiences, challenges, and advice from some of the most amazing people in the business. In this episode, we talk with Bill Sebald, founder and partner at Greenlane. We discuss how he began doing SEO in 1996, selling CDs on eBay, to working for a major music publisher, getting experience with an SEO agency, and then eventually founding his own agency, Greenlane. We also touch on the challenges of building an agency, finding employees who are the right fit, his stint as an adjunct professor at Philadelphia University, and much more. In the news, we talk about a few examples of amazing leadership being displayed by digital marketing agencies during the COVID-19 pandemic, how Amazon is asking some affiliates to pause, and Google's recent advice on how to pause your online business. Finally, we deep dive into how to make better SEO reports, in which we talk about everything from KPIs and data visualization to the art and science of presenting results to speaking the language of your reporting audience. So get your popcorn ready as we tell Bill's SEO story and have another great roundtable discussion. Hello, everybody. You are listening to episode number 47 of the Page 2 podcast. I am your host, Jacob Stoops, and we are here with Mr. Jeff Luella. Jeff, how's it going?
Oh, good. And one quarantine day at a time.
Yeah, every time my wife says, or when I say I'm in quarantine, she says, "Don't say that. You're not sick. You're just being, you're locked down." And I'm like, is that really better? Is that really better? Yeah. Stuck at home.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's good. Though I will say that I practiced some social distancing last night with some neighbors out front, just because we had I don't know, people just wanted to get out and talk. And,
yeah,
you know, we kept our chairs pretty far apart, so we had to yell a little louder, but it was good. So.
Yeah, we've been doing that as well, where, like, you know, with my three kids, it's really, really difficult and challenging to have them stay inside. They're going stir crazy, and I can only imagine that it's going to get worse. So we go out front, and our both neighbors have kids the same age, so that even kind of compounds it. So we go out front, and the neighbors stay in their driveways, and we just talk. It's so weird. Yeah, so bizarre.
There's a lot of that.
Yes, and there is no end in sight. So we're gonna
not at all.
We're gonna carry on. So we do have a guest, Mr. Bill Sebald. Bill, how's it going?
Going well. Thank you for having me.
Bill, where are you located?
I'm in a town called Birdsboro in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. It's a town nobody's ever really heard of, but we're famous for one thing. I think one of the founders of YouTube came from here. I have no idea if he's still here. I doubt it, but yeah, that's the only thing that this town really is known for.
Probably somewhere in Silicon Valley. So how are things going there in Pennsylvania with all of the COVID-19 stuff?
Pretty much same as everywhere else, I suppose. I mean, we have a bunch of counties locked down now, and again, just like you said, no end in sight. We're just gonna hang out. Binging on a lot of Netflix. Didn't realize there was so much good stuff out there. So there's some upsides here.
Yeah, everybody can catch up. Netflix is their business is probably booming. There are, I think, certain businesses that are probably seeing unprecedented activity just because there's just so many people working from home, and we all have no choice and no options.
Oh, yeah.
But then there are obviously other businesses that are suffering to extreme levels. So that part is very unfortunate, very unfortunate. So
yeah, I mean, I think if you're online and you can still deliver, that's great. I mean, there's a couple things I wanted to get that Amazon wouldn't ship me. They said like not until the 21st of April. So I went on eBay and got it off someone over there, but it was, again, maybe not essential, but it's like while you're home, you need things to do. And maybe hobby stuff is not essential on Amazon because they need to ship out toilet paper and stuff. So when I went, probably supported a local business, somewhere local, but a small business, we'll say. And I had it in 2 or 3 days, which was great. So there are local businesses out there like you don't need to get everything off Amazon, and actually Amazon's kind of pushing you away right now. So
well, the thing about Amazon is, so I went to all of the stores in my local area, literally all of them, after the state, and I'm in Ohio, the state got shut down. Not a roll of toilet paper to be found. So I went to Amazon. All the toilet paper was sold out except like a few. And do you know what I got stuck with? Because it was literally the only thing left at the time. And I was like, well, we're running out. So something's got to give. An industrial size box of toilet paper. Now I have like way too much toilet paper. And that was my only choice. But do you know how long it took to ship? 2.5 weeks. And that's funny because, well, we have to have something to do. And my birthday fell right after the state got shut down. So my wife decided to get me, and actually mostly for my kids, a basketball hoop. Do you know how quickly that's going to get here? Like a couple days. Taking me 2.5 weeks to get toilet paper, basketball hoop, no problem. 3 days.
I thought you were going to say your birthday gift was toilet paper.
I mean, I need that probably a lot more than I need a basketball hoop. So.
Yeah, I was talking to some people. I live in a HOA community, swim tennis, and down by the tennis courts, there's a set of bathrooms. But I heard someone on there that somebody, like, if you live in the community, you have a fob, you can use the bathrooms anytime. Someone went into the storage closet inside those bathrooms and stole all the toilet papers out of all those. So,
what a great.
And they were like, there was probably a bunch in there, and they were all those giant rolls, that fit on that. In an industrial bathroom. So,
what is wrong with people? What is
wrong?
I mean,
I guess desperate times.
Weird things, man. Anyways, yeah. Well, I have to say, out of all the things that I thought would be gone in a pandemic, toilet paper is not one of them. So that came as a surprise to me. Anyways,
I was going to say one more thing. I went to Woodstock in 1994, and I had one great piece of advice that somebody who went to the original Woodstock and it was bring toilet paper. And I will say on Sunday at Woodstock, I had a backpack with like 4 rolls of toilet paper in there, and there was none to be found. That I was like, all my friends, I was the savior of that day. I give that guy credit. It's like TP was the one thing to bring to Woodstock that out of everything people brought, I was actually ahead of the game there. So.
I thought you were going to say adult diapers.
Nah.
That reminds me of New Year's Eve. You hear the stories about the people not being able to leave Times Square and being literally stuck there all day. And I'm like, where do they go to the bathroom? And now that I've heard the actual stories, when I see that on TV, all I just imagine is a sea of people peeing and pooping themselves. So I never want to go there. I used to want to go there and be like, yeah, that'd be great. No, not as an adult. No, it just sounds
Couldn't
awful.
do it.
Probably smells awful. Anyways, I'm sure people did not come here to listen to us talk extensively about COVID-19, although that is difficult to avoid, or people's bodily functions. So let's move on. So as I've said in the last few episodes, I'm going to say it again. And when we get to season 3, I'll stop saying it. But this podcast, really, we have achieved our growth goals. So we set out at the beginning of the season, we looked at our listener stats, and we said, all right, based on this, here's the number that we want to hit. And thanks to our audience and our guests, the amazing guests that have come on, we've not just beat that goal, we've crushed it. So, and we can share that at the end of the season wherever we end up, but we've crushed it. So we've grown beyond our wildest dreams, so to speak. Not to say that we're Joe Rogan getting millions and millions of listens, but we're doing better than we thought we would do.
Close second.
Yeah, close second. And I feel like we set a pretty aggressive goal for ourselves, especially being a niche podcast. So we're really happy and really grateful. But being a small podcast still, what I would say is that there are probably a lot of first-time listeners. So if you're one of those first-time listeners, I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis of what the podcast is about. And then you can either choose to listen or drop off and say, hey, this idea sucks. But it's kind of a stool with three legs. The first segment, which is really the core of the podcast and how the podcast started, is about people's backgrounds, origin stories, and really dives into what it's like to be an SEO day to day. When I was starting this podcast now, like a year and a half ago, I wanted to be a little bit different. I wanted to have a voice in the industry, but I didn't want to spew out what everybody else is talking about. I wanted to take a little bit of a different angle. And what I found fascinating, and I still find it fascinating, is that because you can't really learn SEO in the traditional education system, and by that I mean college. If they touch on it at all, they barely touch on it. So most people, especially if you've been in the industry for a while, fell into it from somewhere else. And I would probably anticipate that all three of us on this show are Jeff, I know you, and I definitely know me. Bill, we'll hear your story in a minute, but we probably fell into it. So I find that interesting, and not only that, I find just talking about what it's like day to day, because sometimes it's really awesome and sometimes it really, really sucks. It helps to make other people in the industry feel like, hey, I'm not alone. I'm not going crazy. There are other people like me. And I've found those conversations to be very awesome. So that's the crux of the podcast. The second segment is SEO news. Now, I'm not gonna guarantee that this section is gonna stay, but it's been fun during this season to just talk about some of the breaking news or not breaking news as we've found. And just to kind of give our opinions on the spot, kind of unfiltered. And usually it's just a forum for Jeff being the level-headed one and reading the news and me just complaining about how Google's evil. And that's been kind of a running joke. And then segment 3, and this will probably stay around, but we still have to talk about it, is a deep dive into a predetermined subject. And today's deep dive is going to be around building amazing reports and how to just be better at reporting in general. So if you're still around by then, we're going to deep dive on that, and we're going to get into a pretty good discussion on everything from just how do you deliver reports to what are the right KPIs, dashboards, visualization, so on and so forth. So without further ado, I want to dive into the first segment so people can stop hearing me talk. And I'll say, Bill, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background, how you got into SEO, where you're at now. Just take us through it all.
All right. So I got into SEO in 1996. I started working for a company outside of Philadelphia. They were a local shop. They sold used CDs, and the owner of the company said, hey, there's this new thing. It's called the internet, and there's got to be a way to make some money on it. And, this is the days before shopping carts and all that. So when I showed up at the store, I was just going to buy CDs and would start chatting with the people who worked there. Saw what they were trying to do and said, that's interesting. Maybe I could be a part of it. And that's how I just got hired. So the owner basically said, help me sell these things. And eBay was around, and eBay was the big, really the only platform where people were selling anything. So he had the vision that we could be something similar to eBay, and it was a new internet, and everybody had a fair shot at getting attention. So some pretty, smart, visionary thoughts from him. Even though we didn't have a shopping cart, we didn't have any kind of dynamic databases, no catalog managers. So it was very manual. It was all run by Excel spreadsheets, uploading Excel spreadsheets. But it was working there that I was, trying to figure out how to bring traffic. And search engines back then, they were really, unsophisticated. But I got really interested in just ranking well in all of these different search engines and watching the traffic come and watching sales happen. So that was kind of an exciting time in my life, and I just stuck with it. I started doing stuff in the music scene. I had a little bit of a jaunt there playing music, and I created a music website. This is around the time when like Napster was happening, if you guys remember that. So I decided to create this publisher site, and I was taking what I had learned from this previous job, and I said, well, maybe I can get some visibility for this publisher site. 2 years of hanging out with rock stars and doing some really cool stuff, learning SEO the whole time. Not really successful, not really making money. And then Rolling Stone said, hey, we ought to take this internet seriously. And they came out and we kind of got crushed. So that's where I really got the bug, I think, for SEO. I now worked on the e-com side. I worked on the publisher side, and I really just stuck with SEO from there. I took a job in-house 10 years later, working for another e-com site. This time was a real e-com site with a real working, cart. After that, I went to a place where I might have met Jeff called GSI Commerce. So this was a big platform. They had hundreds of different retailers on there, big retailers. And, we worked in the marketing business of that company. And, all through there, that was probably the best experience I've ever had, because you were around all these, really brilliant people. You were working with really brilliant, smart brands, and you were able to do some really cool things sometimes. So the experience there was, I learned a lot of SEO really well, but there was a ton of SEO that we never had to deal with. We never had to deal with link building, because our brands were always like they didn't need links. They were already getting them.
Yeah, so that was the fun part with that.
Yeah.
You didn't need links.
But I felt like after that job, I was like, there's a lot I don't know. And link building was one of them. So then I spent, the last 3 or 4 years after that, like filling in the blanks. What don't I know? I went to a B2B company. I started to learn SEO for the B2B slant. I've just always been a student of SEO. I've always just been fascinated by it. So 2012, I took my consulting company that I kind of had on the side. It was sometimes a little bit more active than not. And I decided, I'm going to expand this. I'm going to turn this into something bigger. So Greenlane became an agency instead of a sole proprietorship in 2012. I brought in a person Jeff and I worked with. His name is Keith Urban, like the country singer. He ran the analytics at GSI. So I thought, we have an SEO guy and we have an analytics guy. We can actually develop some really cool strategies for clients this way, instead of it being the scaled, typical, everybody gets the same thing type of thing that a lot of big agencies do. Not all, but a lot. So he and I started this company and just grew from there. Just kept going. We're a team of 15 now. And it's just been, the gamble that we took, thinking that people would actually want to talk to SEOs who develop strategies instead of just it being a tactical channel. I think that gamble paid off. I think that's really, where most SEO companies are going now, which is good. Because I don't know, you don't really get good results doing the old school tactical stuff anymore, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So that brings us here to 2020, and been doing the same thing for the last 8 years or so.
So in terms of, founding your agency and going from a sole proprietorship to now scaling up to 15 employees, what have been some of the challenges that you've had along the way, in terms of just being used to working on your own, but that now being, responsible for running an agency, making sure people get paid, doing all of that stuff while still kind of growing and evolving and, as the industry changes?
Well, I was definitely naive going into it. I thought, because I ran a department at GSI, I understood P&Ls and, I understood, how to hire somebody, I thought. Right. But when you're actually creating your own company, there's a lot I didn't know. So it was really tough to, you start learning about taxes. You have more conversations with lawyers than you've ever thought you'd have in your life. But, it was tough to sort of navigate some of those things in the early days. I think the biggest thing that took Keith and I a bit to learn is, we were so used to, and you said it, so I'm going to riff on that a little bit, like you're used to doing all this stuff yourself. Now you have a team of people, you have to delegate things out, and you have to pick people that, see the vision, believe in the vision, want to execute the vision. So you have to find the right people, and you have to find people that can, help you get things done. And, in the first few years, I think I stressed myself out a bit more because I didn't realize I wasn't letting other people take some control. This is their company too. We're all working at this company. We want to love it. We want to have things to do in it and things to be proud of. So eventually, we figured out we got to start letting other people come in and take some of this off our plate, because we're dropping the ball way too much. It's just way too much to do. So now we have what I believe is a perfectly, balanced kind of system.
And what makes, in your eyes, the right person? What makes a person fit?
Two things I interview for is passion and attitude. We at Greenlane, we try to get somebody who has some sort of brand experience or agency experience. But if somebody comes in the door and they have passion and attitude, I'm instantly interested. Even if somebody doesn't know everything, if they have the passion and the attitude, and you can really see it, then you'd know that they're going to eventually learn it. Like those are sort of the people that I want to have on board. Ideally, if I can get experience with it, yes. But if I only had to pick two, passion and attitude, it means so much to me. And you could tell right away when somebody has it.
Right.
So having worked with Jeff and managed Jeff, I guess I have to ask, what's Jeff like as an employee? I've worked with him for a while now too, but I want the rest of the world to understand what Jeff is like.
Jeff managed me. Jeff was my boss.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I did not realize that.
I never ever looked at it as boss or anything like that. We were trying to figure things out. So,
right. I was
Jeff the boss.
I was a consultant. I was doing Greenlane on the side, but I had a full-time job at GSI. And then I decided I wanted to go and try full-time consulting. So I quit GSI. They hired Jeff. Jeff took my job. And then our old boss asked, hey, why don't you come back and consult for us? And now I had a boss. And I was like, great, let's do it. Because I actually loved that Jeff was there because we had trouble getting in the very early days. I don't know when you joined, Jeff. Maybe it was like 2007. But we were having trouble really getting SEO to get through to all the other business managers and all the brands, and they weren't really interested in investing in a big team. And the SEO world is a community, and not having people who were SEOs with me got kind of lonely. And I always wish there was somebody else there. So when I heard that you were joining, I was thrilled. I was like, yeah, there's going to be some more SEOs to talk to. So it was actually a great experience having Jeff come in.
It was fun. I learned a lot off of Bill, and just in general, like I think together we were trying to figure out, like, GSI was amazing because they just had all these top brands that were, everyone, I think there wasn't a brand that people didn't know out of that bunch. But they also had the worst platform for e-commerce that anyone could have. So you have someone like Toys R Us on a platform where you couldn't put a canonical tag on it or something like that. So it's been a little crazy. It was fun doing there, but again, there was, when you said, Bill, you can do stuff sometimes. There was some great times we can do stuff, but then there was times where you just throw your hands up in the air because you can't do anything because your company is the one that's in charge of the platform, and the platform served 50 people. And if you made one change, it changed it on 50 people because it was never meant to actually build to be individual platforms. I knew they were getting away from that, but it was an interesting time.
It was tough because you knew what you wanted to say to clients, but you knew what you weren't allowed to say because they'd scrutinize the platform.
Exactly.
So we would have to build plans against what we knew we could do, and that's one thing. And by the way, this company's gone. They changed their name a couple times. They were bought by eBay and then dismantled, so they're not around anymore. But starting Greenlane, there was a lot of things I liked from that experience, and there's a lot I didn't. And that was one of the things. Like, I want to be able to go and say, you company have these goals. I'm going to give you everything that you need to do to get there. Not, here's some things that you can do. I want to give you the right answers, because every company can theoretically do anything we prescribe as SEOs. I look at it like a doctor. A doctor's not going to go in and say, all right, we're going to try to get you healthy, but you got to quit smoking. They're never going to say you don't got to quit smoking. They're going to tell you what you have to do, whether you want to hear it or not. And I think that's the best approach that you should take as a consultant.
So I'm just going to say that you guys make my Christmas time shopping a lot harder, because I'm going to blame you guys for causing Toys R Us to shut down.
Oh, we were out of there before they did that.
Yeah. Oh, but there was some.
But it's a giant pain in the ass to Christmas shop without Toys R Us.
Yeah, they were very. Toys R Us was fun. I mean, it was an interesting company, but they were so disjointed internally. Like, from any meetings I had with them back then, and Bill, you might have worked on them after me, but when they brought us in, I just remember we were trying to win them over as like complete SEO clients, and they yeah, they went with someone else just because it was just me and Bill pretty much. And they liked us, but they would always come back to us and ask us some things. And I remember when they bought toys.com, that was like this big fun thing. They were like touting that they owned like the top 5 brands on toys. And they bought toys.com for like the highest amount anyone ever bought a domain before at that time. It was like $4.8 million. And then just 301 redirected it to Toys R Us and lost all their value. And that was a fun phone call when, Toys R Us calls your line and like, what did we do wrong? And I'm like, this is Toys R Us? What are you calling me? Okay. That was fun.
I remember that.
Yeah. And then made it a mess. They made toys.com, and I tried to make them a Woot site, and they made it more like a funny blog. And I was like, well, that's not what I was planning. But
it's funny that you guys talk about working doing SEO, but for the same company that built the platform, and having to be very careful about what you say. I had an experience similar to that. I won't say the company, but it was, if you've heard my bio, you know some of the companies I've worked for. So it was a few companies ago, and our team built a platform, or not built the platform already existed, but we helped implement it for a very large hospitality client. And we got to we were coming up to launch day, and I couldn't have been throwing up any more like red flags than I was with things that were wrong. Like I was basically like shooting off fireworks at that point, going, guys, not going to go well to all of our internal teams. And also while trying to balance the line with the external, the client saying, you just need to be careful. You need to be careful. I'm a little worried, not going to go well. So it was like a fine line between telling the client what was actually going to happen, and it ended up happening. It didn't go well. Their revenue dropped by like 40% as soon as the platform launched. And then the team came to me and said, the team on our side came to me and said, okay, we're ready to start taking you seriously. What do we need to do to fix this? And I'm like, you should have listened to me before, and then we wouldn't be in this problem, but you didn't want to listen. You basically told me to be quiet, and I couldn't criticize you, and I couldn't call you to the carpet in front of the client. So I had to kind of keep my mouth shut. So weird situation.
Yeah.
Oh, so Bill, you are an adjunct professor at Philadelphia University. How'd you get into that, and what is it like being kind of a professor, and what do you talk about?
So I haven't actually worked for them in over a year, so I probably should update my bio.
Yeah.
But the same thing I've done for them, I've done for in a way I've done for a couple other schools. Drexel is in Philadelphia. If you know Drexel, I work with Drexel as well. So it's basically, I like what you said in the intro. It's, a lot of, you're not learning this in schools. You're learning this, in this amazing community that's been going strong for over 20 years. But the schools that do actually spend the time to teach digital marketing students about this, I think those schools are incredibly special. I think, Drexel, I think Jefferson, bringing somebody in to teach their students about SEO. Why wouldn't they? Why shouldn't they? Like, this is a massive industry. There's so much to learn. It absolutely should be a class. So essentially my class has been, let me give you guys everything I can for understanding what SEO is. I start with the history of search engines. I start with how SEO was kind of a technical channel and has moved more into a overall marketing channel. Talk about all the different things that Google does, and then how that sort of changes the way that marketers approach Google. How we tie, the idea of balancing, I almost said manipulating, that would be wrong, but balancing, influencing an algorithm to balancing, humans as well. So that's basically the meat of the course, and that's really the 101. I haven't done a, next sort of level class yet. I hope to. One day I want to do the deepest tips and tricks on link building and go really deep, but I haven't been able to do that yet. But I hope schools will, open this up to their curriculums.
But, how did that even occur? Did they come to you, or did you go to them in terms of saying, hey, I want to teach a class there? How did that even come to fruition?
Yeah, they actually both came to me. Yeah, just usually somebody says, this is something that I think might be worth teaching, and I know this guy, Bill. And he's got a big mouth, and he likes to stand in front of the class and talk, so let's see if he wants to do this.
And then my last question, and because I want to let Jeff and Bill kind of banter back and forth because you all know each other better than I do, I would ask, do you feel like, when you get kind of a newer employee, especially with what being a professor, do you feel like they're coming out of school ready to do SEO on the level that they need to be?
No, I don't. They tend to know a little bit about digital marketing, and it's really interesting to me that these classes, and I studied marketing, and it was 1993. I don't even know how old I am to know what year I went to school. But they still seem to teach the same kind of marketing curriculum. They're not doing a whole hell of a great job in digital. Digital is so massive, it's so big, and I think they definitely try to cover it, but they don't get detailed enough. And SEO is really about the details. It is a very nuanced channel. So the young people that I talk to who come out of school and say, I am ready to start a career in digital marketing, they have to do their work. They have to do their homework themselves. I mean, you got to take that degree and you got to jump into the blogosphere and start, finishing your education. At Greenlane, if we get somebody in like that, we're gonna do our damnedest to train them. But we always say to them, like, we can't teach you everything. This is a hands-on industry. You're going to have to, keep reading, keep doing your homework, but don't just read a blog. You can't learn how to do this from reading a blog. You have to do it. Go build stand up a WordPress site and take everything you just read that day and go try to, execute it. And then come up with your own theories and your own, beliefs on what works and what doesn't work. So schools aren't prepared to teach somebody that.
I don't think you can teach it, right? It's one, things change, but it's also that tenacity that you just being able to try to break things apart, put it back together, and not being afraid to lose traffic. And with a client, everyone's afraid, right? So having your own site is ultra important to try things out. I mean, I think I need to work on mine a little bit more because there's so many new things out there that I haven't, like, I try to push through with clients, but being able to have Jake and I Jake's a big pusher of us getting like tons of case studies and things that we've done and actually developing strategies that we plan, like, hope will be a case study. And I'm not just, a lot of times I like to throw a lot of things up on the wall and we get some of it implemented, some of it not implemented. But it's tough. Education is tough with younger folks, especially I think in the bigger agency. There's so many other things out there too. Like if you're just in digital marketing, I mean, you have paid, organic, social. I think a lot of kids come out of school thinking social is the big thing and it's big. I'm not saying social is not big, but they live their life on Snapchat or TikTok and they want to be an influencer and they think it's a sexy position. And then you get into it and in SEOs, I think to me, it's like we have to know a lot more overall, as in like we're dealing with some UX issues, we're dealing with technical issues, we're dealing with content issues, and those are all specialties that, like, there's content writers, right? And they don't want to hear from an SEO that they need to write content different. And developers, this was kind of, we ran into our things at GSI where developers didn't want to implement things for us and would charge us, like, we had an internal billing between development and SEO. And I just wanted to update the title tag of a homepage, and that developer there wanted to charge me something like $5,000 to update it or something. And then he posted on his Facebook, you know how to get rid of an SEO? Charged them 10 times the amount it really costs to implement something. And it's like, great, we're on the same team. But I think education there would have been a great thing. So, like, not necessarily education through the adjunct, professor or college route, but internal education, I think, is something that we all can do better. And stuff like that. Do you have at Greenlane? Do you have like a set guidance on education inside of the agency? Like, if you have someone new come in, do you have things pre-made? Like, you bring them through, like, week 1 you're going to learn these things, week 2 you're going to learn this, or is it more here's Maz's beginner's guide and let's get to reading?
We do now. We didn't in the beginning. Maddie on our team has put together an incredibly great onboarding package. But yeah, I mean, I didn't want it to be trial by fire. I didn't want people to come in and it's like, oh, just jump in. But I guess in hindsight, we were doing that a little bit. We always try to bring in really experienced people, so it's like plug and play. But there's training. I'm okay with trainings to get the team all to see the way that we do it as Greenlane. Then you got to figure out what training do you need to give somebody to do their job better. And then sometimes there's what training do you need to give them so that they're caught up in the industry. I don't really, if something comes out like BERT, I really don't want to do a internal training on what is BERT. I kind of hope the team goes and self-studies so that we can come back and say, now, how does BERT actually, how does this make a change to something that we're going to do for a client to be successful? That's where I would rather spend the training time, because you only get so much time in a day. And all my, team members, they have, clients. They have to still work with their clients. They have to do the things that I ask them to do, as the owner of a company. And then they're going to have to spend some more time. They're going to have to carve out some more time to make sure that they're educating themselves. It's definitely a tough industry. It's rewarding, but it's tough.
Agreed. Do you have other kind of meetings or kind of like weekly things where it's like educational brown bag lunch type of things, or where maybe coworkers are teaching coworkers? Are those anything set up like that? Yeah,
we do those. Sebastian, who as well, he created a team meeting for all the SEOs to come and show something that they've done that was amazing, and then sort of dissect it and explain why it was amazing. I think that's really helpful for the other SEOs. We do another thing we call it All Hands Day. Sometimes it's a 1-day event, sometimes it's a 2-day event, where our team's coming and showing basically their small little webinars, just sharing them with the team. So we're all kind of learning from each other at least once a month in a big way, but usually it's something every week. And we use Slack a lot. So we have a channel in Slack that people can share information with and say, hey, here's something I read. Here's what it means. Here's something I did with a client. So even at that level, there's constant new stuff coming through.
That's awesome. So we're in a weird situation now, right, where everyone's kind of on lockdown and working remote. I think I remember Greenlane was like a 2 or 3 day in the office, and like Monday through Wednesday in the office and Thursday, Friday from home. Is that the way it's always set up?
Yep,
that's I like that idea, because as someone who's mostly 100% remote now, I kind of sometimes miss the office. So I like that idea of being kind of with your people and giving people that kind of 3 days in the office, 2 days home. I think is a really good way to kind of mix that up a little bit, so you still get the team camaraderie, but you also have those days you can get home and just put your headphones on and rock out. I think
it's grind, yeah.
It's a big wake up. Yeah, I think it's a big wake up call for a lot of companies that weren't offering remote work, and now they're struggling to kind of figure out like what service do we need to use and things like that. But no, Slack is one of those ones where we really we use a ton here in the office, and sometimes it can be a little time waster if you're getting into like everyone throwing memes and stuff like that up on there. But at the same time, it's really great for having those dedicated channels. Each client we have a channel, and each kind of service level we have a channel, and that way we can ask like service level questions or company level questions. And then there's the general water cooler channel in Slack that is just that's where all the shenanigans happen.
Yeah, we have a water cooler channel too. I'll be honest.
Is it a quench water cooler?
No. But I'll be honest with you. And you may not know this, so when I left GSI and you came in and I went to start my solo consulting thing, I failed at it. And I failed at it because I was not good at working alone from home. I wasn't ready. I just couldn't get it together. So I had to come back and see people and work with people. Now when we hire people, it's one of the number one questions I ask, like, do you think you can work from home? Can you do this? Can you pull this off? Like, you are going to be needed. You're going to need to be available. You're going to have all these freedoms. And, we basically give you enough rope to do what you want, but, you can also hurt yourself. So we've had a few cases where some of our team wasn't really able to pull it off. And you have to identify and say, you're not the right fit, unfortunately. But yeah, right now we're at a spot where everybody's proven that they can do work from home pretty well. So this situation where we're all working from home now was really nothing different for us.
So I think this is a good point before we move on to news. So for us three, we've been able to work from home for a long time, but there are a lot of people in a lot of different jobs, not just SEO, but in agencies who are used to going into the office, or who might be in-house, who are used to going into the office, that are now being forced to just be at home almost exclusively. What advice would you give to people who are not, that's just not their thing, or they're not used to it?
Stick with your routine. Wake up, get a shower, have breakfast. Don't say, hey, here's a chance to sleep in and I can do my first calls in my pajamas, because you tend to sort of feel like you don't have any structure, and it's harder to get things done when you don't have a structured day.
Yeah, I try to get out for lunch. Well, I was trying to get out for lunch and things like that. That way it felt like I was leaving the office for a little bit and coming back and stuff like that. It took me a little while. I mean, I've been working remote a little bit over a year now, and like I feel like I'm in the swing of it now, but at the same time, it's even having that work remote attitude, now it's like the whole family's here too on top of that. So you're juggling something else. And I think we're all kind of seeing some of that with the kids staying home from school and trying to homeschool them at the same time.
Oh my God, there's not enough hours in the day. I would agree. I think the routine piece is big, in making sure that your day is structured. A couple of things that I would add on top of that. One, it's not applicable as much right now because you can't really go outside, but I would say try to get out of your house. And I mean, you can still go take a walk and do things. But like for me, there were times where I realized for days at a time, because I worked at home, wasn't leaving my house. And I was like, well, I'm going to go crazy. I need to get out of my house. I need to just, for the sake of change and sanity, try to get out of your house, go take a walk, go do something. The other thing that I would recommend is make your lunch your time, because it gets really easy when you're working from home to just work all day and to sit in front of the computer all day. And while you may get more work done, fewer distractions, it's not necessarily super healthy. So one of the things I do is I take my lunchtime and I use it to work out and to just focus on personal development in that way. Because when else am I going to have, especially with 3 kids, when else am I going to have time to exercise? So like, I know that that's my me time, and you can use it for other things. You don't have to be like me, but you do have to have some me time, because I know, like for me, I'm transitioning from in the morning, get all the kids up, get them ready, go to work, and in the way that things were before with kids going off to school and wife going off to work, like all day was my me time. Well, I don't have any me time anymore. I'm immediately transitioning, going upstairs because my office is in the basement, and immediately like right back into the fire in terms of, going right back in and handling all of my responsibilities as a parent, cooking dinner, doing all those things. So there's not a lot of time for me time. So if you get a chance, like carve out some me time. And the other thing I would say is try to have a dedicated workspace. Like don't work from your bedroom if you can, or if you find a space where you can be sort of separated, where there's an opportunity for you to think without distractions, without noise, and make sure, especially if your family's home right now, that they have a healthy respect for the fact that you're at work and it's a very serious thing. And I know that's difficult right now, especially if you have kids who may want to come in and out of your office and distract you or get you to play or whatever. But you do have to make sure that, like, hey, Daddy's at work, I've got to take this seriously, that you have like a healthy balance and a healthy level of separation where people realize you're at work and it's a serious thing. So that's just my advice.
But it is also fun sometimes when your kids barge in and
don't get me wrong, I
come give you a big hug.
I love my kids, and it is a great distraction sometimes, but when you're on the call and trying to focus, having your daughter come in and ask, Daddy, can I have your phone? Is that necessary? Ellie, is that necessary? Really? Do you really need my phone?
My kids are always like, Dad, can I get a snack?
Yeah, it's that type of stuff.
Let's go get a snack. I'm on a call.
Yes, you don't.
I would suggest this too. I mean, it's something we've been doing these last couple of weeks while we've been home. We have times where everybody just sort of gets together and we just talk, and as a business owner, you're like, well, that's not time to work. And nah, you know what? It's really important to be able to get that time and just talk. Like we have stand-ups in the beginning of every day. That's how we kick off our day. We go around the room. Everybody talks about what they're working on. We just coordinate that way. Well, that's supposed to be, 10, 15 minutes. Some of ours now have been going like 45 minutes. Friday, we took this from GSI, Friday at 4 o'clock, we now all get onto Zoom and we just talk. We just bullshit. Yeah. We just talk. Mm-hmm. And we remind each other that, that we're still very close. We're still very, we're a family. We have to just stay connected on a personal level. Yeah. I think that's incredibly important. And I hope business owners and business leaders are considering that is absolutely something that they need to encourage in their company during these times.
Yeah. At Search Discovery, we have Whiskey Wednesdays. So every Wednesday at 4:30 in the offices, like the company buys a bottle of whiskey and we sit around and we drink it. And then, but now we're doing it virtual. So it is sometimes hilarity happens when you have like 30 people on Zoom that are drinking. So it's always a fun time. Sometimes, it's really hard to get any real conversation going, but it's again, new times, trying new things and having, if you were remote, you could always Zoom into the office when they were having their Whiskey Wednesday, but it was always like people in the office talking and you're like remote. Now, since everyone's remote, yeah, now it's like the Brady Bunch. You have like everyone's picture up. It's like Brady Bunch, but with 30 people. All these little thumbnails watching everybody and just like the people who virtual backgrounds. And now, if you don't know, Snapchat has a camera app that for your computer, so you can do all the Snapchat filters on Zoom.
Hilarious.
So we've had some hilarious. You could become like a pickle or a potato, or have like toilet paper on your head, or change your face. So it's that just adds to the hilariousness of other things. But it also eventually, we gotta get back to business. But right now, I think people are going delirious.
My favorite one is the filter where the person is looking from the outside into the microwave and there's just pizza spinning and all you see is their eyes. It's so hilarious. It's so distracting. Yeah, we had a person doing that yesterday and I'm just like, you're going to have to stop because I can't even focus with you doing that filter. It was too funny. Oh, all right. Let's move on to the news. Yeah.
Cool. So there's, in these troubling times, there's been some rays of sunshine, we'll call them. But so another Philly boy, Will Reynolds from Sierra Interactive, is basically coming up with, I think he has like $150K that he's going to be offering to his employees, that anyone who has been affected by the being laid off, if you're I think it's mostly because you're working for him, you have a job, but like if your wife or partner or someone like that, or mom got laid off from their job, he will match the stimulus package with 1.2K. I think, not matching it totally, but giving 1.2K. I think he did $15 an hour, 40 hours a week for 3 weeks. And is offering that up to people in his company to help them get through some of these times there. And then Ross Hudgens
E2P
has also – was that?
E2P alum, Page 2 podcast alum, right there.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully Will be an alum one day too. We'll get him on. Right. But yeah, from Siege Media, he's also doing the same thing to him. So where they're offering 1.2 or $1,200. I don't know why it's written 1.2, but $1,200 to anyone's like partners that have been affected from that. So if we're going to see, I think a lot of stimulus checks going out to kind of help the economy. But what's even better than helping like the whole economy is helping like you're not better, but as a company helping your people out there. It's a tough time, and a lot of people just can't work. Right? It's not like you don't want to work. Restaurants are closed, bars are closed, all those type of jobs are kind of gone right now. So it's really good to see companies stepping up and offering help to their employees that might be affected by this.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bill.
We have a couple clients. I'd love to tell you the one, but the stuff they're doing, I know, is costing them money because they're basically using their warehouse to build things. I got to be cryptic, but they're building things to help medical professionals go and take care of everyone, and definitely cost them money. There's a lot of ways that I'm seeing companies doing really cool things, altruistic things. Sometimes they're not even broadcasting them; you just hear about them. That's awesome. It's such a great thing to see companies do that at their cost, because it's the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I saw an article. Go ahead, Jake.
Oh, I was going to say, I just think what's great about it is for companies that are in a position to do this, that's awesome, but not all companies that are in a position to do this do it. And I just think that it's a stellar, especially within our industry, example of just really rock solid leadership, and even more than that, empathy, and thinking beyond your own employees, but thinking of their family, friends, partners, parents, whatever. It just kind of blew my mind a little bit. And we just wanted to bring it up because it really deserves some recognition and attention, and kudos to them for stepping up.
Right. And Will is really big into charities and like Seer Interactive in a whole does tons of good things with the community. So that's awesome. But like even companies like Bauer, who makes ice skates and hockey helmets, like right now, no one's buying any of that stuff. So they're actually repurposed a lot of their technology to create like those shields that go over technicians' faces. So when people are doing testing and stuff like that, there's a ton of companies. I used to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you follow the account of a gi maker, so like the little karate outfit that people wear. But they're actually doing like recycling a lot of their stuff because of the materials they use, and all they really needed was the plastic shield to kind of cover that. And then they're kind of creating face masks and stuff also that are made out of their materials, but they're just like, no one's buying stuff right now, and they have the capital to be able to just help out and help the local things, because honestly, like there's a lot going on where we just can't get the supplies that we need. There's such a demand. And that's kind of all about flattening the curve attitude, where we're trying to keep it, for our systems from going so wonky. So it's great to see companies not being forced, like I think GM's being forced to make ventilators, seeing companies just step up and try to get out there and help as much as they can and help locally. Cool. So another thing in the news is, and this is one I think we were talking a little bit earlier, that not every affiliate got it, but Amazon is starting to ask affiliates to pause their marketing campaigns. We're seeing a lot with Amazon now because they are a essential kind of business for people that actually who don't want to go outside. I've been using Amazon grocery delivery and stuff for a long time now because I'd rather just click some buttons to get my groceries brought in. But it's really hard to get delivery time. So I have a delivery coming tomorrow, I think like 8 p.m., but I had to order it on Friday morning to be able to get Sunday afternoons. Like it used to be, I'd get the same day or early the next day. So there's, and buying products, I went to buy something the other day and it was saying April 21st was when they would actually be able to ship it. Because they're trying to ship the essential stuff first. So they're kind of asking their affiliates to, like, if you are an affiliate for anything that's non-essential, like, can you try to stop sending traffic to our site over that type of stuff? They're not like, going to penalize you or anything, but they're just saying, they need to serve the most urgent customers' needs first. So they're asking, like, if you can promote that. And I know, Bill, you said you didn't get these emails, but I'm wondering maybe if your affiliate sites are doing essential things.
No, they're selling they're selling pet products. Well, maybe they're essential to some. No, I didn't get that email, and I'm curious about it because I know some have. So are they asking you to not? I mean, they're not asking you to remove your affiliate links. They're just saying don't. Arbitrage.
Right.
Don't, push. Okay.
Yeah, they're basically saying like they're asking you to, like, if you're running paid against your affiliate sites or you're doing things like that, like they're kind of asking to try to pause all your marketing actions to stop getting people through. So, Which I guess it's a thing. They didn't say they were going to like stop. I thought they were going to say like no more affiliates for the time being, but they didn't say that. So I think they're still going to go through with the affiliate programs. They're just asking you to kind of, if you can, let's push that out. So cool. And then kind of the last thing we have on the list here is Google came out with some technical guidelines on how to pause your online business. So if you are a business that's affected and you can't deliver things out anymore, or your kind of company is being locked down, there's some things that we can do. And some of the lists they went through on e-commerce sites are like, if you can't sell or ship products, maybe disable the cart functionality so people can't try to buy stuff through you. Put up a display banner. I think every website now has some sort of pop-up or banner across the top about their COVID plans. But if you don't, that's something that you can put up there. I know, like, I talked last week about it, but I found a little coffee roaster that I really have been enjoying their coffee locally, and they're being affected by this, but they're doing online orders. And they don't really mention that well, like you can't go to the store anymore because the store is closed. So I reached out, didn't hear anything back yet, but I want to offer some of my services to them for free, just to be able to get them to a right spot so that they don't lose as much business. And it's mostly because I want their coffee. I found like it was really, really good. So I want to be able to kind of keep that around. But the idea is that like right now, like if you can't ship things out, you want to kind of try to block some of that, or check your merchant feeds to see if you're not, like, paid search is one that's been kind of going on these days, where if you're still selling paid search and going crazy on that to an industry that's not really doing well right now, you might just be losing money. We have some clients that are killing it right now just because of they were selling either home gyms or something that people kind of are really jumping into now. But if you're a company, my wife does real estate stuff, and it is interesting because you're not taking anyone out for showings right now. You're not taking anyone out for anything. So I've been really working with her, trying to say, like, let's work on your personal brand. Let's work on like building out your website and getting ready for when the things start flowing again. But as it is right now, it's if you're running paid search against your real estate agency, you might not be getting the return that you wanted because people aren't going to be going out looking at homes right now.
So I have a few thoughts on this. So it seems like there are things you can do, like structured data, for example. I guess one of the questions I would ask you guys when it comes to structured data, and then I want to get also to what Google said about if you just need to shut your site off completely, how to do it right, because I think that this is important because it could become a big issue for people after the pandemic is over if they do it wrong. If you're a site that takes a long time to get technical changes done, but you need to change your structured data to maybe let people know in search results that you're out of stock or things aren't for sale, or just whatever you need to do to make the change to the structured data to just let people know that things are unavailable. Given how quickly this has to be turned around and how I guess that this could go on for months, but I guess my question is, if you're a brand that takes 3 months, 4 months, 5 months to get technical changes implemented, like, should you even attempt to do that?
I think so, absolutely. You just,
Phil?
Hey, this is now a P1 ticket. This is something we have to prioritize above all things.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't disagree, but I just wonder if there are brands that even when it's a high priority ticket would still take a long time, and the pandemic would almost be over by the time they get it implemented. Gosh, yeah.
It's a tough one because everybody's different. I mean, I've seen companies be able to move really fast when that ticket is ready to be, fulfilled. And then I've seen companies that just take a lot longer, and every company's totally different.
And then let's talk about a little bit about shutting the site down. And I'm going to read a little bit verbatim from Barry's article, and then maybe we can talk about it. So if you must disable your whole website, which Google highly discourages and does not recommend, Google says this is an extreme measure that should only be taken for a very short period of time, a few days at most, as it will otherwise have significant effects on the website in search, even when implemented properly. Here are some options Google said when doing this. If you need to urgently disable the site for 1 to 2 days, then return an informational error page with a 503 HTTP result code instead of all content. Make sure to follow the best practices for disabling a site. Bullet 2, if you need to disable the site for a longer time, then provide an indexable homepage as a placeholder for users to find in search by using a 200 HTTP status code. In bullet 3, if you quickly need to hide your site in search while you consider the options, you can temporarily remove a website from search. So I guess what would be the scenarios for you guys in which you would do that? And if there's advice kind of outside of that, those 3 main bullets, I don't know, what would you advise if your clients are coming to you saying, hey, we need to shut down? What are the ramifications, short term and long term?
Jeff, what are you thinking there? Because that is such a tough thing. I'm thinking about like what Victoria's Secrets just did. Like, we don't have any e-com sites that need to shut down.
Right.
Some of the local services that we have, they're pausing, but there's no need yet for us to take the site offline, to hide it from search. We're just putting up the right messaging saying, hey, here's the situation, here's where we are. I know Victoria's Secrets, they made some interesting choices with their site, but now their site is back up and fully functional except for the cart. And I was toying with it. I wasn't buying anything from there. Nothing there suits me. But, I was trying to figure out what they did. And maybe it's different now. But when I looked at it, the cart, it was a usability problem. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was adding things. And then I was like, oh, wait, I'm not really able to check out. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of different approaches. It really just depends on what best works for your business. But this is the time to talk to an SEO. I mean, don't make any decisions without an SEO being able to weigh in, especially this time.
Agreed. I don't see any reason to take down a site unless like your company's gone. Though messaging I think is huge and important. And again, if you're trying to take down not have any orders, then don't let them order, but don't take down your product pages and stuff. Just have messages on it. Maybe remove the add to cart button, right? And just say temporary hold. I know at Search Discovery we had a client who kind of paused for a few days on their just orders because they had so many orders that they couldn't fulfill them and they needed like 2 or 3 days to just catch up on things. And again, as a business, like that's amazing news. It just stinks that it took like a pandemic to do that. But at the same time, it's one of those things where they actually had to pause their stuff just because they couldn't do it. But I would never say like take down your website over that. I don't know a reason why you would take it down unless it was something that was like totally false or really messing something up out there in search land or in the world. I think some of Trump's tweets should be taken down and 503 somewhere else. But at the same time, I don't know about a whole website in general. I think, but again, I can't think of every scenario. None of my scenarios would actually do that. So
yeah. I would agree. And, it's funny. I wish sometimes we would have more disagreements, but it seems like we all think alike. So I can't, I'm sure that there are scenarios where taking the site down is a viable option, but I think what I would advise if somebody came to me is one, don't panic. You still, if you're planning to be around after the pandemic, you still have to think about the long-term ramifications of whatever you might do now, because doing something crazy now might hurt you, when this is over. I agree. There are things you can do on the site to make it very clear that, whether it be messaging or disabling the shopping cart or saying, hey, we're temporarily out of stock due to high demand, or just whatever the case may be. There are things you can do on the site to let people know that, like, hey, this is only temporary due to COVID-19 and we're going to be back in business before long. But I would say, like, it's absolutely the time to talk to an SEO, because not only can they help you understand what you need to do, or should you take the nuclear option versus not in terms of blowing up your site, but if you do decide to take your site down, and a good SEO is going to be able to help you do it in a way that is going to reduce the risk long term most hopefully by following Google's guidelines. But because I know that there are a lot of people that would maybe talk to an SEO and maybe decide to take their site down and then do it technically wrong. So I think it is important that if you have an SEO that you trust, let them help you through the whole process. Because I've always said, like, most people think our job is just growing traffic, and that's not the case. Sometimes our job is to protect the traffic you have. And this would be one of those cases. So,
Agreed.
Jeff, why don't we move on to the deep dive? Just want to be respectful of everybody's time. So, our deep dive today is on how to make better reports. And I want to approach this from a few different angles. One, the idea of just presenting reports and how that can be some part art and part science, and in the experience of presenting to executives and giving them the information that they need versus maybe more day-to-day contacts, because that is totally different. I want to talk about KPIs, dashboards, which KPIs are the right KPIs, what dashboarding tools and visualization tools are the best ones to use, and maybe even looking into like the difference between insights and observations. Can you guys hear my kids singing?
It's amazing.
Yeah,
love it.
The singing queen. It's the greatest.
He is singing queen. I love it. All right. So I'm going to go on mute and go tell him to be quiet, or singing just further away from my office. But I'll leave you guys with this question. One, how do you start from a reporting standpoint? Like, where do you start the conversation, and how do you, as an SEO, especially if you're new, get used to the idea of presenting your data?
So I love these questions. So reporting, in my mind, I think I'm going to go back to the old GSI days, Jeff. So the one thing that I don't agree you should ever do is just sort of make these reports and be like, here's a whole bunch of numbers, and throw them over to the client and then read the reports to the client. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like 10, 15 years ago, that's what we used to do. Once a month, it was reporting time. And we didn't have the APIs and everything to make the reports fast. We had to do these exports by hand out of Omniture and all those tools that we were using then. And then I felt like, oh no, it's that time of the month where I have to read the report. And we never really did those deep, analytical dives. We never really pulled out insights. And I guess at some point I realized, well, that really sucks. With that, we can do that differently. So the way that I look at reporting now is, with the great technology that we have, with everything being able to be ported in through an API. I don't know if you guys use Data Studio, but like it makes building these reports so easy once you learn how to do it, that you never have to spend time, and a lot of time, the time that you're spending is time the client is paying for. You never have to spend that time putting this thing together. Now you have all the data in front of you. You could spend that same amount of time it used to take us to build these reports analyzing those reports, and it's going in and it's saying, here's the data. And then the client says, okay, what does the data mean? You say, well, it says traffic is down. You take that to the next step. Well, traffic is down now. I've dug in, client. I see traffic is down on these 10 pages per se, And then they're down on these 10 pages because it turns out Google has changed the SERPs for these pages. Google has changed the intent. And it looks like your competitors. So you could just keep on going down rabbit holes. And that's what I think the importance of reports are, the insights. That's the most important thing. And in our company, I like the idea of the reports being just as valuable for my team as it is for the business or the decision makers at the other end of the phone call, because they need to understand the website that deeply. It's another great benefit of having reports. A lot of times people will ask me when we're talking about maybe working together, do you guys do SEO reports? Yeah, kind of every SEO company does some kind of SEO report. The value really is taking that report and customizing it towards the goals of the client, towards the KPIs of the client, breaking that sort of scalable format that every client would get the same thing. And that's where I think the work should be put in. It's in insights and customizing towards KPIs and not the data collection. We have the technology to do the data collection in a snap.
Yeah, no, and that's something that's somewhat newer, right, over the last 4 or 5 years or even probably newer than that, where Data Studio is amazing. We at Search Discovery use, we're a Domo partner. We use Datorama. We also use, if we have to, Tableau. So that dashboarding stuff out there it's kind of, there's a million of them out there. Data Studio I love because it is easy. It integrates with Google stuff very easy. We also are a big Adobe shop, so doesn't work with Adobe as well, but there are kind of all those plugins you can put in. I use one called Supermetrics, which helps automate a lot of that pulling data there. And so if I needed to pull in Adobe Analytics stuff into there, I can just pull that in, no problem. But yeah, it's the collecting the data is easy. It is my struggle with any type of reporting is that insight, right? How can we get data? And I think I'm cynical, and maybe a lot of SEOs are. Like anytime I say like data, like, oh, take this one with a grain of salt because this was from Search Console, and we never know if Search Console is right, and things like that. Because at least I think they're getting a lot better with their data, but at sometimes, they might be 2 weeks behind on their data. So going through, like making sure we do have the correct KPIs. I think we all have the basic ones, traffic and bounce rates and things like that. But every customer or client has a different, like really goals and events set up and setting those in there. How do you work on, do you have like a standard, like dashboard that you start with and then you customize from there? Or do you have a lot of, do you think of it after you have your client and your got the KPIs down, do you build a custom dashboard for that client?
Yeah, there's a boilerplate to start. And then it's, the first thing we do when we're working with a new company is we're trying to understand, what are you in business for? Like, what can we add to your business into these reports? And it's funny because sometimes you look at these quote SEO reports and you're really reporting on things that aren't usually reported by SEO reports. But, SEO is kind of woven into all the different marketing channels. It's woven into your business in so many different ways that sometimes the SEO reports can be more than just about rankings and, just about, it goes a lot deeper than just that, in my opinion, at least these days.
Yeah. What kind of KPIs do you put in? Again, beyond the standard ones, what type of KPIs do you find in your basic kind of standard template?
Again, it depends on the client, right? So if you have one that's really trying to do email acquisition, there might be some KPIs about that. Yeah, it all depends. The easiest one to do is e-com, because e-com, they're always interested in the moolah, right? But a lot of other companies, they're looking to achieve other things. And and it's really kind of fun to do SEO against some of the non-traditional targets. It's a bit challenging. So I'm always welcoming to somebody who has some sort of business model and it's different than usual, because I like to build strategies for things that are different than usual. So I just make sure that I'm reporting on them. I know I'm being a little vague because I can't think of any real examples that I wouldn't have to explain all the way through and take too much time. But hopefully that made some sense.
So in SEO reporting, like you said, like SEO kind of is expanding, in some other things. So some of the reports that I like to try to put in mine, like a performance report, just to say, like, kind of like looking at page speeds and stuff like that. And technical, being more of a technical SEO in there, like it's interesting. I see a lot of times we focus on traffic numbers and stuff like that, but I think site health reporting is also important inside of reports. But I think a lot of SEO reports that I've seen don't really focus on that at all, because it is really just, here's your sessions, here's your rankings, and there's your report. But there's so much more to it. So being able to integrate things like Deep Crawl or Screaming Frog into a report, like Deep Crawl, you can use the API to pull in, or Screaming Frog, just export out data into sheets to be able to find out like broken link reports or things like that, which could help. Like, this is a report I sent to the technical team. This is a report that gets sent to the CEO of teams. And it's funny because I find myself sometimes, like, I love data. So at the end of the day, I look at my report and I'm like, there's so much data in here. How do I present this to my clients? And I end up now kind of with a lot of my clients just taking pieces out, putting them in a presentation. We all have the dashboard. We can all see the craziness, but here's the insights that we want to give you. So these are the numbers that we see here, and here's the insights of why that's happening. And I kind of make it a lot of times in presentation reports. But the dashboard just helped me merge things together and look at things that are like looking at them like Search Console data next to GA data next to your ranking data is really great for using Data Studio to pull that all together.
So a lot of our clients are really. Oh, sorry, Jake.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to comment on that. I mean, a lot of our clients are really trusting us to tell them the things they don't know. So You make a great point. The technical things like that change a lot. So you need to be reporting on those changes, but you have to be able to say to the client, this is why I'm reporting on it. This is what it means. And, here's the plan that we're going to now employ to try to improve this. So all of those are part of the real value of a report. You got to show the why, and you got to show, what you're going to do about it. And you got to be able to explain it to the client in a way. This might be part of the, art versus science, because it is a little bit like performing. You have to be able to understand your audience and then describe it in a way that they can walk away and really, truly get it. I mean, I've done my share of read out of reports, and I've known that the person on the other end of the line is just completely glazed over and doesn't know what to make of it because I didn't do a good enough job of explaining what I was actually, the reason I was bringing all this to their attention.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the table stakes version of reporting is KPIs, dashboards, so on and so forth, and putting that in front of people and making that information available. But what really separates a really good SEO or a really good company, and I say this on the analytics side because there are a lot of analytics folks that are really good at implementing stuff, but when it comes to looking at the data and providing insights and understanding what's going on and why and being able to relate that back to your campaign, that's where a lot of them fall completely short. So I think that as an SEO, you've got to be able to have a deep enough understanding of what's going on with your strategy, what's going on in the industry, what's going on with that particular brand, what are the economic conditions, and factoring all of those things in to the data and then interpreting that based on everything that you know that you're doing. And I think the best SEOs are able to make that connection and then make the story very personal to the audience that they're speaking to. And I will say one of the things that I personally struggle with is differentiating the report for the level of person. And when I say I struggle, I feel like I'm very good at talking to mid-level or very boots on the ground sorts of folks. And where I tend to struggle is leveling things up high enough for an executive who only has a short amount of time or maybe only cares about the vanity metric and doesn't care about all the context behind it. And I'm the type of person that always wants to give them the context, the here's why. And sometimes I struggle when I run into executives that don't want to know that or that don't care to know that. So that is a struggle. And I will say that, 14 years into my career, I feel like at the beginning of my career, and I think SEOs, especially if you're at the beginning of your career, it can be very intimidating to walk into a room and deliver a report or deliver a monthly or a quarterly or a business review, whatever the case may be. And the advice I would give is it takes a lot of at-bats, and there's almost no way to feel more comfortable than by continually throwing yourself into the fire. And I would say that even 14 years in, there are times when I still do get nervous reporting out results. And I think that that's the most important part. What I said, what Bill said, is the idea of giving them the information that they need to know in a way that they can consume it and understand it. And I would say that it takes repetitions, it takes at-bats, and I feel a lot less nervous now than I did before. But I think for people listening, if you're early on in your career and you're feeling like nervous, especially when you're about to deliver bad news, it is completely normal to feel that way. So I don't know, like, what advice would you give for people that are maybe on the newer end of the greener end of the spectrum, so to speak, when it comes to delivering out valuable reports?
I think number one, you got to make sure you know that site inside and out, right? Treat it like it was your own. So if you have 5 clients, make sure you know everything about that site. Maybe you even know more about that site than the person you're talking to. So once you start to feel really confident about the site, it makes those conversations a lot easier, I think. You could just, when you go, I remember going into calls and I was just like, I didn't spend enough. I really secretly know I didn't spend enough time really understanding this client's business to have a off the cuff conversation with them. Because you want to go in organic and you want to go in and be able to talk and really understand what your client's all about. And then again, that's part of going through the site and spending a lot more time analyzing the site than just pulling the data. And SEO is one of those things where there's always ups and downs. Nobody stays number one forever. Even doing the greatest things in the world, you sometimes wake up and the algorithm has shifted you and you've moved. That's part of the game. And understanding the game as an SEO is part of it. The other part is being able to teach your clients how it works. Because you certainly have had the same clients as I, and they're like, how did this happen? What have you done? You must have done something. Nah. We can't make Google do anything. We can only influence them, so things are going to happen. So now we've seen this happen. This is what we're now going to do to influence them to get them back to where they were or better than where they were. As a consultant, you have to be so confident and believe in that, because if you don't believe it yourself, then you can't talk to the client and really, sell the truth through. And that makes a whole sort of uncomfortable dynamic when you're not that confident. So you got to be confident in your skills, confident in the site, confident in the strategies that you're recommending, and then it's much easier to go to bat.
Have you guys ever had experience with, and there's a specific type of personality that you're dealing with, and I don't know exactly what to call it, but where you're working with a client, sometimes at the executive level, and it's almost like they smell blood in the water, so to speak, when they realize that you're not feeling totally confident, or even if you are feeling totally confident, they want to just challenge you to see how you react and try to put you on your heels. Have you guys ever experienced that?
Definitely.
And yeah. I guess, how do you push back against that? Like, what do you do when that happens?
Well, my first question is, why did you hire us if you don't like, what we're bringing to the table here?
Well, that's maybe one of the things you can't say, but you're thinking.
I mean, yeah, if they're doing that for any other reason, if they're trying to be combative or they're not happy with the relationship, I mean, some of that can leak in sometimes. So you just gotta suss that out, get to it. Okay. No, I'm candid. I don't treat it any differently than any conversation with anybody. I have my opinions and beliefs, and you've hired me to bring my recommendations to you. These are them. You can take them or not. I hope you do, but that's just sort of how I approach it. I said earlier, like a doctor, I sort of think of us as doctors. We come in, we give you the prescription. It's really up to you to take it. We just keep trying to give you all the good, reasons why you should take those recommendations.
You're Dr. Feelgood, right?
Dr. Feelgood. I go in. I usually dress like Tommy Lee, and I go and I present like a rock star.
I guess my one where I cannot feel confident sometimes is, and I remember this one time very vividly because it was a nightmare of a reporting call. But it's like when Fred update came out, I had one client who was hit by it. It took me a little bit to figure that out, but I kind of overlaid a whole bunch of data of when the Fred update happened and how their data shifted and how it dropped down. And then kind of, gave them this is what people were saying about Fred and how of course it was thin content and duplicate content, which they had tons of. And I just remember giving them the reporting because we had really bad numbers, down like 20% or something. Usually really hard to go into a presentation confident when you are down 20%. But going there and then kind of giving them the recommendations and them just going like, yeah, we're not going to do that. And stop blaming Google's algorithm on your lack of performance and stuff like that. And it's just like, at that point, you're just like, I kind of threw my hands up. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like this happens in SEO, and went through it. And then the next meeting wasn't as great either. And I felt like at that point we had lost confidence in some of that stuff. And I kind of lost confidence in them too. So luckily we were able to switch it out and switch some teams and to be able to kind of instill some more confidence. Because sometimes at that point, people just want you to be confident whether your answers are, not to bring up Trump again, but he's so confident in everything he says, whether it's right or wrong. So people love that attitude to it. And I feel like, I didn't have that at the time to be able to go through like, no, we got this. This is exactly what we need to do. And when they were kind of questioning stuff, I'm like, listen, like we don't know exactly. I'm just going by what other people have done to fix this issue or going through it. And this is kind of our recommendations based on that. And sometimes people don't like that answer of like, it depends, which is kind of the SEO answer, I think, for some things.
It's not a lie, Jeff, if you believe it, to quote George Costanza.
Yeah.
Not a lie if you believe it. And I guess the reason I asked the original question is because, like, I'm thinking of a particular executive that I ran up against early in my career. And, like, even thinking about this guy now, like, it still almost brings me to the point of sweating, because this guy was one of those people that, like, he came into the conversation ready to be any conversation, ready to be aggressive and ready to put you on the heels. So anytime you had a talk with him, whether it was just walking through the office or it was like a serious meeting, you had to be ready to be put on your heels and to be challenged. And that is an incredibly stressful place to be. And I do remember, and this is like where I'm going to give advice, there were times when I came into the reporting call where I didn't know all the answers, or my strategy maybe wasn't as fully baked out as it should have been. And this guy was ready for that and was ready to immediately put me on my heels and challenge it. And I would say that I got myself into trouble by pretending to know more than I did for fear of not wanting to come off like an idiot. And sometimes you just have to be like, I don't know, because if you get into a situation like that and you try to fake it, those people are going to know it, and they're going to continue to like whittle you down and continue to ask more and more and more questions to force you to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And if you're really lying to yourself inside about what you know, it's one of those situations where if you tell one lie, in order to protect that lie, you've got to tell the second lie and then the third lie. And then how do you remember by the time you get to the end all the lies you told, when if you were just honest up front and said, look, I don't know the answer to your question, but I'm going to go figure it out. That answer is just fine. As long as you don't say it too much, that's a fine answer. And I learned that early in my career, that saying I don't know can sometimes be just as effective, when compared to trying to answer a question that I had no business trying to answer. So if you're early in your career and you don't know the answer, it's okay, but be willing to admit it and then go figure it out. That's what I would say. That guy still makes me sweat. Oh, okay. I don't know. Before we kind of end the episode, are there any other last words when it comes to reporting and doing a good job?
Last words. I mean, I actually think we've made some really good points here. I've seen, we're in the agency world. So sometimes you start working with a client who's worked with another vendor, and, you see their reporting. And I do still see a lot of thin reporting out there. Mm-hmm. So last words, maybe that's something that's worth a look every 6 months or a year. How can your reporting be better? And better in all the ways, every single way that we talked about here in the last 20, 30 minutes. So, I know agencies, we typically, my company's a little different than most, but most agencies want to scale. right? That's how they make their money. They scale, everybody gets the same thing. There's almost like a script that people are taught in some of these companies. I know you're not one of them because I know Jeff, and I know. But there's a lot of agencies that they're just not doing a good job on these fronts, and they can do better. And it just takes pull yourself out of the weeds and take a look at your deliverables. Take a look at everything. Make sure it's the best it can be. Spend a little bit of time making them better. Your life will be easier. Your job will be easier. You'll retain clients longer. You'll make more money. It's really worth pulling back sometimes and just trying to make sure your reporting deliverables are stronger. But not just your reporting deliverables, your tech audit deliverables, your content gap analysis, every single thing. Just make sure that you're looking at those sometimes and making sure that they're the best they can possibly be. It's so easy to get stuck in the weeds, get stuck in a template and just, I filled out my template, I'm done for the month. No, there's more. You are a consultant. You have to be, there for your client, figuring out the answers. This isn't just throwing things over the fence and saying good luck. It's really understanding your client, helping them reach their goals. That you can't be mechanical about it. You got to be, you got to be a good consultant and go deep. And you got to learn. And you know where I'm going now. Now I'm blathering because the coffee has kicked in. You guys got me up at 9 today. SEOs don't even wake up till noon.
I was out late last night too. So I do have, I guess on my side of things is like with reporting, you have your basic reportings, and I think trying to make reporting better, right? So we can get those insights, and have them jump out on the page a little bit easier. So I think reporting is something that's going to be, it's going to be more advanced soon. So we talk a lot in SEO about machine learning, and you have J.R. Oaks building a mini internet and crawlers and trying to figure out how to know entities on a page. And we know all this stuff about pages and how to rank better. But I think machine learning and AI and things like that are really going to help on the analytics side of things, where we're going to be able to see trends, right? Pull out trends that we can't necessarily see with the eye, because some of our sites have 1 million pages. How can we see trends that are happening on the bottom half of those pages? Because, again, your homepage may get 1 million visits, but if you're selling e-commerce, there might be 50 products that have this weird thing going on, but you don't know what that is. And running machine learning through that and being able to pull out some trends, positive or negative, pulling that in with things like log files. That's kind of a mysterious thing. Everyone says log files, oh, look at your log files. Well, I can't get log files ever from a client that has I work with a couple large retail clients. They're not giving me their log files. I don't know how to get them. I've asked hey, can I get a sample of them? Just so we can see how Google's crawling through your site, and they're really hard to get. Splunk is a tool that people use that I can get access to sometimes, but in general they're hard. But I think kind of the merging of data, something you're not going to ever get just out of Google Analytics. But if you take Google Analytics, Search Console, your ranking tool, and Deep Crawl, and kind of merge something together, you can start seeing, oh, look, there might be some crawling issues going through these deeper pages, and that's why we see traffic and rankings dropping down, and things like that, where I think it's really hard to, again, I go through deep holes of clicking, trying to find where issues are, which sometimes dashboards can't report on. But in general, I think getting those more advanced reports, I think it's going to be a specialty inside of analytics in general, but how SEO is broken into different specialties, content, technical. I think having kind of that reporting type of things, though it probably wouldn't just be SEO specific, probably be SEO, paid search, things like that. But knowing even how those two play, hey, we just ran a new paid search campaign. How's that affecting my SEO rankings or my SEO traffic in there? And sometimes you don't know what's happening. So being able to have a tool that can pull them all together and run some sort of machine learning through it to pull those things out, well, I think it's kind of the future of reporting. We are there, I think, to an extent, but I don't see many agencies doing that right now. So.
That's a great point. I mean, the BI tools, they're kind of hip and trendy now, and there's a ton of them, but I still think that people still have not fully figured out everything that you can do with Data Studio. Correlating data, taking all these different sources and getting information, getting the story out of all of these inputs. I mean, Data Studio is amazing. I tried Power BI. I tried all those. I'm like, there's no reason for this. Data Studio. I've never once gone into there and said, I can't get what I want out of Data Studio. Plus, it does visualizations, so and you can port all that information into Data Studio.
And you can put everything into something like BigQuery or that's their big database thing. Put it in there and store it, so that way you can actually have it and pull back from like the past or different things that you ran like an algorithm against.
I think it would be great for all SEOs to sit and study a little bit of Data Studio. Get the feel of what it can do, because that'll definitely help your job. And with machine learning on its way to help you, kind of see some of the things that you can't otherwise correlate and just kind of understand, it's only going to get easier. But I think some of those BI tools are definitely the right next step.
So let me give my three. I wrote down three things that I would give that I would give in terms of advice, on top of the advice we've already given from a reporting standpoint, and then I'll let Jeff kind of close the episode out and take it past the finish line. So I'm going to be very succinct. One, do your homework, know your stuff, know the site in and out, as Bill said. Two, and this is really, really important, and it can really help you develop a good relationship, is don't wait for the client to come to you asking what's going on or asking what you're seeing. Go to them first. Be proactive. They will appreciate you immensely if they don't have to come to you for reporting insights every time, if you bring those things up to them proactively. And then number three, and I can't stress this enough, and this has helped me get over the nervousness. To be quite honest, as I've gotten deeper in my career, you almost have to report as if you're an unbiased, uncaring third party. And it's not that you don't care. It's not that you don't want your client to be successful. But if you're reporting from a place of having a great degree of bias, you're going to try to slant the report in a way that makes you look good. And I think what a client really needs you to do is to report the facts just as they are, hopefully with your analysis and insights as you kind of interpret what's going on. But you can't be afraid to tell the story like it is, even if it doesn't paint your results in the best light. And I know clients, it can really suck to go to a client and have to explain bad results. But for the people that do it honestly, I can say from my personal experience that you will build more trust if you're willing to share the results, not just when they're good, but when they aren't as good, in an unbiased and honest way. That helps you develop a great rapport and a great relationship with a client, and they can trust you, whereas a lot of SEOs have problems getting trusted. So that is one way to develop trust with a client that can supersede the relationship just with that client. Sometimes clients go to other places and then bring you in. They bring in people that they trust. So like building trust is almost more important than the actual performance in data itself, although that is, as we know, incredibly important. Yeah, let's take it through the finish line.
Awesome. So, Bill, we ask every SEO that comes on to our show one simple question at the end, and it is how much money? No, I'm just kidding. It is, if you were getting into SEO today, what's like one piece of advice you would give to that SEO? Like today's day one, and it's like, hey, Bill, I'm thinking of getting SEO. What kind of advice would you give me?
I'd say prepare for your mind to be blown. No, I'd say, you're going to go into this and you're going to see a lot of stuff that you're going to have to learn. Tons. You're going to feel incredibly overwhelmed. But this isn't going to be something that you learn probably in a year. It's going to be something that'll take you 4 or 5 years to finally become super, super confident in all the parts of SEO. But definitely try to learn it. I mean, you can be, one pillar in SEO and have a great career and make a lot of money. You can be just you can understand content inside and out and not really understand any technical. You can succeed that way. But it's so much more fun when you are really good at all of those pillars. I don't want to say, a jack of all trades, master of none. Try to be a master of all the pillars in SEO and make that to me is a completely fulfilling professional goal, because it is right. Doable. It's massive, but it's completely doable. It's not like understanding every facet of all the different laws out there. It's not understanding all the different things that all the different kind of people in medical can do. We can learn all of SEO in time, but don't be don't be overwhelmed. It takes time, it takes patience, and it takes a lot of self-study.
Awesome.
I think patience is key.
And confidence. You said that earlier. I think that's really important too.
Yeah. Patience is king, not content. Anyways. All right. Bill, thank you for coming on. We're actually recording on a Saturday. So actually, I thank you to everybody for making time to record on a Saturday, even though the episode will release on Monday. But thank you for coming on. Thank you for having a great conversation. And have a good weekend.
Thank you. It was super fun. It was great.
Thank you so much for listening to the Page 2 podcast. If you'd like to find out more about the show or listen to more episodes, visit us at page2podcast.fm. That's page, 2, podcast.fm. Our episodes are also available on a number of other platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Deezer, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, TuneIn, and more. Additionally, you can also listen to our show on our new YouTube channel. If you'd like to become a sponsor or would like to be interviewed, get in touch with us at thepage2podcast@gmail.com. Until next time, happy optimizing.